Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. For today's video, that's going to take us to around the 19th of January, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles. They run to around a couple of weeks. We'll have a look at Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days, going well into February at the end of the video. So we're going to begin with what's happening with the CT. So we're 1 week into January now, and we have an exceptionally mild month currently taking place. So we currently stand at 7.4. That is provisional to the 8th of January, so that's for the first week of the month. And it's an anomaly of nearly 4 degrees above average, so exceptionally mild first week to January. Remember, the all-time January CT for the warmest January on record was from January 1916, which came out at 7.5. So if we was to hold it at 7.4, we would have the second mildest January on record. We would just be underneath the all-time warm January temperature record of 7.5 from 1916. But this may tick up a little bit more. Very mild out there today in the CT region after a very mild night. So tomorrow this might be at or even above 7.5. However, just because it gets to that one point in the month, gets to a record-breaking level, at one point in the month, does not necessarily mean it will hold there through the whole month. It's going to be very difficult, I think, to be able to maintain the temperature at 4 degrees above average through the whole of January. And we are seeing a few signs, which I'll show you in a moment, of potentially something a little bit colder coming along for the final week to 10 days of the month. I think it will be week to 10 days, final week to 10 days of January. That will determine where we come in with this CT. Obviously, it's going to be a warmer than average month. It will be a milder than average January. The question is, how mild will it be? And will we break the record? I think it's looking increasingly unlikely that we'll be able to break the record, but we shall see. We're only 1 weekend, kind of 3 weeks still to go. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. No, they're not. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Penn State University. I've only been doing this since March 2012, so you can't expect me to remember the running order of the charts we're looking at. No, these are the 500 millibar height anomalies from the Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. And we've got the ECOWF on the top, and the GFS is on the bottom. So 500 millibars is an area in the absolute high pressure and low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream. And that essentially is what weather is, a movement of air masses by the jet stream. Blue extrapolates to below average heights, which is low pressure. Yellow, orange and red to above average heights, which is high pressure. So you see within the 7 to 10 day time frame, it's taking us to around the 19th of January. In the 7 to 10 day time frame, we have this area of below average heights out in the Atlantic and also extending into the UK as well. The position of the jet stream indicated by the black lines is a little bit different compared to what we've had recently, though. It does look as though the jet stream is coming southwards, which will mean these areas of low pressure could be a little bit more stormier than we've had recently. We may get some quite stormy weather next week, and also B, potentially pulling in colder air of these areas of low pressure, particularly as they clear away to the east on their back sides. We may start to pull in some colder air from the north. That will be particularly for northern parts of the country. We do have above average heights down to our south and also to our southeast as well, but it looks like these areas of high pressure but have combined with the low pressure to give us such a very mild start to January. It looks like those areas of high pressure excuse me, are just beginning to slip a little bit further southwards, and that's allowing that jet stream to ease a bit further south as well. GFS is very similar in the week to 10 day time frame. So again, low pressure in the Atlantic and also coming into the UK and the northern part of Europe. Again, we have above average height still sitting to our south, so no immediate changes to the overall weather pattern. High pressure continues to be a very important player through Spain, Portugal and the Mediterranean. Little bit of high pressure starting to get going up towards Greenland though. That's quite a weak area of high pressure, so probably won't do a great deal in terms of pushing colder air out of the pole at this stage. But what we can see is that, similar to the ECM, it does look as though the jet stream is coming a little bit further south. In fact, let's get rid of all those L's. So the jet stream is starting to come a little bit further southwards, meaning that again, southern parts of the country could turn increasingly wet next week. We could have some heavy rain coming down into the south. We could start to bring some colder air into mix with these areas of low pressure as well. And just a rather more seasonable feel. Not going to be desperately cold, don't get me wrong. It will perhaps just start to feel a little bit more like it is actually winter next week compared to what we've had through particularly the first sort of week of January. Now, these are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We're looking at Norwich today. So the red line is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Norwich. You see that we begin with a bit of a zonal sine wave, or quite a significant zonal sine wave actually, with these warmer and cooler and warmer and cooler and warmer sectors alternating. After that, it looks like we just hover very close to the 30-year temperature average as we go sort of into the second half of the month. What we can see is that the thick green line, that's the operational rate, so what I'm going to show you in a moment, it was a cold outlier. There are other ensemble members doing the same thing that the operational run is doing, but it was certainly at the colder end of the ensemble. So we can't discount these ensemble members up here, but still keep things very mild. Obviously, if things were to play out into like the last week of January with these ones up here that are keeping things very mild, then by the time we get through to the final week of January, we could well be on course to break that January temperature record. But if things develop as the operational run is indicating, then any chance of breaking the CT record for January will be well and truly off the table. There will be no chance that we will be able to do that. But the operational run, again, I will show you in a minute, is at the colder end of the ensemble today. So there is a bit of uncertainty about this second half of January, but overall I think we may be seeing signs that the temperature will start to come down anyway, even if it doesn't get particularly cold. I think we'll start to see the temperature cooling off and coming down a bit after the middle of the month. Precipitation wise, just plenty of rainfall spikes to come, so there can be some wet weather coming up later on today across Norwich, and then more over the weekend and particularly into next week. In fact, we could go through quite a wet spell here around the middle part of January. We do, again, I saw this yesterday, see signs of a drying trend through into the last week of the month, becoming a little bit drier at that point. Still some precipitation spikes, as you would expect, because we're talking about the extended part of the GFS and its ensembles. But a bit of a drying trend that may be coinciding with building pressure, possibly something a little bit colder starting to develop for the final week or so of the month under higher pressure. Certainly going to be live though for the next week. So temperature anomalies from the 9th to the 17th of January, still above average by around 2 degrees or so for most parts of the country. So exceptionally mild across much of Scandinavia and western parts of Russia and also Eastern Europe as well. These anomaly maps have not changed all week in terms of these exceptionally mild temperatures. And still unsettled, so precipitation anomalies from the 9th to the 17th of January, above average still for the UK and for Ireland as well. Generally on the wetter and milder than average side in the week ahead. Right, so this is the GFS for Saturday. It's GFS 6 o'clock run. We know this is going to be at the colder end of the ensemble, so it will be a relatively cold run. But we begin on Saturday very mild, bringing up these southwesterly winds and a little bit on the stormy side as well, particularly for northern western parts of the country. There's the upper air temperatures for Saturday, pumping up the 5 plus 5 Celsius ice firm across most parts of the UK and Ireland. That's very mild for what is going into the middle part of January. Almost statistically the coldest part of the year, but the coldest part of the year on average tends to be sort of mid to late January to just into the early part of February, similar to how the hottest part of the year statistically tends to be mid to late July and into the beginning of August. That period tends to be the hottest of the year and 6 months after, we find that this period, sort of mid to late January into early February, is often the coldest time of the year on average. Of course, there will be years that deviate from that a lot of the time. So anyway, we're going in towards what should be the coldest part of the year, and we look exceptionally mild with those southwest winds pumping in more of that those very mild upper air temperatures. These are the thickness lines. So what you have to do with this is think that each coloured line is kind of like representing a temperature really. So this is the 546 line, this green line just here, and really that's autumnal air. So you expect to be within the 546 line around October, November, that sort of time of year. It's cool, but in winter, that's actually quite mild. So for most of the year, the 546 line will be quite cool. If you get 546 in the middle of summer, for example, it will be a very cold summer's day. But in the middle of winter, 546 is actually a mild thickness line. This blue line just here is winter. This is the 528 line. If we're within that, then it will be quite cold. Sometimes be cold enough for snow, but it will depend on other parameters. This darker blue line just here is the 510, and that's bitterly cold air. So you remember when we had the beasts from the east in at the end of February and into the beginning of March in 2018, one of the things we was watching for was to bring the 510 thickness line in from the east, and we did do that. And when we was within that 510 line, then we went very cold. We went quite severely cold actually, for us, with temperatures struggling to get above freezing some places, staying around -2, -3 all day when we was within that 510 line. And this purple line just here is the 492. Now we don't really see that. There's probably been the odd example where we have brought in the 492 at some point, but generally we don't see that. It's too with that it's too cold for us to get that into the country. I'm sure somebody will come up with an example where we did get the 492, but generally we don't get that one. That's right up there in the far Arctic and North Pole. So the point of the thickness lines is that essentially we are mild or very mild there for winter within that 546 line. It will feel more like it's October than January on Saturday, although probably feel cold man actually because the winds will be very strong. We go through into Sunday and things will cool down a little bit. We're going into westerly winds on Sunday. Will be a little bit cooler and fresher, possibly some wintry showers in the north end. Early next week we may get some stormy conditions sometime around Monday through to Tuesday. That looks like could be quite a nasty area of low pressure just there. This is where it is on Tuesday. This sort of daughter low rotating around the main low. This is the main low up here, but we get these little secondary features coming around the edges of the main area of low pressure. So that's where the little low is on Tuesday, but by Wednesday that low is over Scotland. So that's the kind of thing within 24 hours it can deepen like mad, and it can produce those sort of features, can produce very stormy winds indeed. So one to watch for Tuesday. Then another little low comes in for Thursday next week. Again, that brings very wet and windy weather with it as well. We start to move up towards daytime, we lose the worst of winds, and we start to find the pressure beginning to rise both to the north and to the west. So this starts to push the low pressure further southwards. So as we get to daytime, we actually start to get some ridging going, both to the west and also to the north. It's relatively weak ridging, but yes, some higher pressure is beginning to come into the mix. That's forcing the low pressure and the jet stream southwards. Jet stream is doing something a little bit like that. And cooler air then is starting to push in from the north. In fact, colder air. These are how the upper air temperatures look by daytime. Remember how they were this coming Saturday, just a couple of days away. This is how they look by day 10, Sunday 19th of January. Now we have the -5 Celsius ice firm through the country. So that's pretty cold air. Sometimes -5 Celsius ice firm can be cold enough for snow We also have that all-important 528 thickness line, the pale blue line, sinking through much of Western Europe as well. So we are within genuinely cold air there. We haven't been throughout much of this winter been able to say that we are within cold air. But that is a genuinely cold sort of day by the time you get through to day 10. You'll notice how the autumnal line, the 546 line, that is actually being pushed a long way south of us now. So this is genuinely cold air that's moving in from the north on this GFS run by day 10. But again, bear in mind, this is at the colder end of the GFS ensemble. It's not an outlier, but it is at the colder end of the ensemble. Then high pressure begins to build in across the country. Winds turn a little bit easterly. They could drag some wintry showers to southern and southeastern parts of the country by Monday 20th of January. Just generally quite a dry, cold, frosty sort of feel there. I would have thought that dry, cold, frosty weather continues into the 21st. Then low pressure starts to move in from the Atlantic, but it is struggling. This is kind of an event, but the kind of situation that might produce a little bit of a snow event as these low pressures are coming into cold air, and they are struggling to get in. So again, the detail on that would be to be determined. It's far too far away to take that seriously, but it's just a suggestion that it's going to, like, into the last week of January, we may start to see chances of some wintry conditions if things were to develop like this GFS run does. That's a big if, of course. This is how the GM is looking. So again, mild, wet and windy over the weekend. A little bit cooler as we get from Sunday into Monday. Then maybe a bit stormy Monday to Tuesday. Still mild though. Winds always pumping in from the southwest with the GM. Moving up towards day 10, that's how we look. So staying unsettled and no sign of the jet stream coming southwards or any sort of pressure building, higher pressure building to the north. So that just keeps us mild and unsettled right way up to day 10 with the GM. No sign of any change with the weather pattern there. And then the ECMWF looks like that. So for Sunday, again, rather mild and wet, certainly from the south to start Sunday anyway. Then we go cooler and fresher. Early next week, again, the suggestion that it might turn a little bit stormy from Monday through to Tuesday. And we keep things unsettled then through the course of next week. That looks like quite a nasty area of low pressure to our southwest midnight on Thursday next week. By midnight on Friday, that low pressure is in the North Sea. Again, it's a kind of situation that can produce some quite stormy winds. A little bit cooler as well as that low pressure exits away. We do go onto the cold side of the jet stream indicated by the black line. That's shifting to our south. So the ECM is also beginning to turn things cooler or colder as we move into the second half of the month. Get up to day 10. That's how we're looking at wet and windy. Low pressure still crashing in from off the Atlantic. You will notice it's having a go at building some pressure to the east and northeast. It has a ridge over sort of eastern Germany, western Poland, and it is extending it northwards as well. It's having a go at building some higher pressure over Scandinavia. Now, how successful that build of higher pressure will be, I'm not sure, because the Atlantic still looks very, very active. There's more low pressure to the south of Greenland. That's only going in one direction. So any ridge across Scandinavia is going to struggle to maintain itself. But definitely there are a few hints here that things could be starting to cool down as we move into the second part of January after an exceptionally mild start. This is the precipitation forecast based on that ECM run from meteo.com. Rain and hill snow across southern parts of Scotland and northern England at the moment. That gets out of the way. More rain, though, later on this afternoon into this evening across many central southern parts of England and Wales. So that could be quite heavy. A drier day tomorrow, but by the end of it, we're going to be bringing the next batch of wet and windy weather into western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Then it turns wet and windy in the north and the west, but also very mild on Saturday. England and Wales mainly dry until late Saturday when this band of rain pushes southwards. Could be a wet start to the south on Sunday. That gets out of the way and leaves us cooler with showers from Sunday to Monday. Then another deep area of low pressure bringing heavy rain, maybe gale force winds sometime Monday through to Tuesday next week. That one gets out of the way. Here comes the next one for the middle and second half of next week. Again, more very wet and windy weather coming up. Could be some hill snow in the north with that area of low pressure. And then another one hits us as we're moving towards the end of next week. This is the 16th of January. Another one coming up from the southwest, bringing more heavy rain. Quite a bit of snow suggested with that through parts of Ireland and Scotland. Over time, the air is beginning to turn colder, very gradually. It's not a sudden process, but over time the air is beginning to turn colder with this ECM run, and so very gradually more wintry precipitation starts to appear. So that by the time we get through to day 10, we have this next band of rain moving across the country, and that one is actually giving the chance of some sleet or wet snow to many places. Now the ECM does overdo its snow forecast, goes for quite a significant snow event actually by day 10. Scotland and Northern England. It's overdone, but it's just a suggestion that day by day, as we get through to the middle of the month and then into the second half of the month, just day by day, the air's getting colder, air's cooling down, and there's just a little bit more wintry potential creeping in. These are the options on the table within the ECM Ensemble today for day 10. This gets us to the 19th of January. So we have 20 members of the ECM Ensembles with high pressure sitting just to our south and southeast. Low pressure is out to the northwest. And so with that one, it's relatively dry, particularly for southern and southeast parts of the country. And maybe quite cool in the south, but fairly mild in the north. 18 just here with low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. High pressure is both to the northeast and to the east. Jet streams a little bit further southwards. That includes the control and the operational ECM run. The operational run was just looking at, of course. So that's still quite unsettled, but it is going cooler as the jet stream is coming southwards. And then 13 with high pressure over France, low pressure out towards northwest Scotland. And that's a relatively milder scenario as we are still on the mild side of a jet stream. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. This is to the 24th of January, so heading into the last week of the month. 15 members of the ECM Ensembles with high pressure pulling out into the middle of the Atlantic. Jet stream doing something like that, a little bit of low pressure to our east. That's probably quite cool and unsettled. Hints of a bit of northern blocking as well to the north of Scandinavia. 10 with low pressure to the north, high pressure to the west, southwest. That's probably relatively mild. Another 10 with high pressure extending from the Atlantic into the UK, eastern parts of Europe. That's going to be mainly dry, probably cold and frosty with that one. 9 with high pressure as a mid-Atlantic ridge, low pressure over Scandinavia. Could be a little bit on the cooler side with that one, probably mainly dry. And then 7 just here again with a mid-Atlantic ridge, low pressure to our east, and pulling down quite cold winds potentially from the north with that one. So again, just a suggestion, nothing definitive, just a suggestion that things might start to go a little bit cooler into second half of the month. Finally, Beijing Climate Centre, these are 500 millibar heights, bring down to 10-day periods. The first 10-day period takes us from the 6th to the 15th of January. The coming 10 days with above average heights to the south, below average heights to the north, looks relatively mild there and quite unsettled up to the middle of January. Next 10-day period is the 16th, 25th of January. Low pressure driving in from off the Atlantic. The difference, though, is that the ridge has pushed down further southwards, so the jet streams come southwards. So that's still unsettled, yes, but it is quite a bit colder as well as we go onto the cold side of the jet stream. Maybe a little bit of wintry potential there. 16th, 25th of January. Then into the next 10-day period, which is the 26th of January to the 4th of February, below average heights out to the northwest, above average heights starting to re-establish around the Azores. Looks like the jet streams coming north. That might be a bit transitional, starting cold and unsettled and then beginning to go maybe a little bit milder. And by the time you get through to the final 10-day period, which is the 5th to the 14th of January, Valentine's Day, above average heights have re-established to our south, below average heights are back to the north, and so that looks milder with winds coming in from the southwest. Read between the lines of all of this model output, there is a little bit of cold potential for the second half of January, maybe even lasting to the beginning of February. Still unsettled though, the main pattern is still unsettled, but it's just that the jet stream is allowed to come southwards as that ever-present high pressure, this winter, high pressure over Spain just weakens a little bit, allows the jet stream to come southwards, and that brings the low pressures southwards as well. Now, obviously, if we was to start building up some proper high pressure around either Greenland or Iceland or Scandinavia, then we could lock into a proper cold spell. But with the Atlantic so active, we're going to struggle to do that without something like southern stratospheric warming. So at the moment, I think if you want something colder, the best thing to hope for is probably just that the jet stream comes southwards, allows these areas of low pressure to come southwards, and just gives us a rather more seasonable feel with a little bit more wintry potential, particularly for the north. I think that's what we're looking at the moment, and any sort of thoughts about proper northern blocking, I think we have to be realistic and say that's going to struggle without some sort of game changer like a southern stratospheric warming. So, yes, it does look as though we could start getting a more seasonable feel, and if we do, then we can forget any chance of January breaking that 1916 record. We'll have more tomorrow, where again we'll have another week's 10-day video update, and of course tomorrow JMA Friday, which is the Muppet look ahead. So we'll see what the CFS and the JMA have to say about the weather into February. First video up tomorrow. That's all for now though, and thanks for watching.